The Boston Celtics have recently went out and signed an extension for Jaylen Brown, and thanks to his second team All-NBA appearance, he was eligible for the 5-year, $304 million Supermax extension, making his contract now the largest in league history, which is pretty wild to think that the man with the biggest contract in the league's history has the same left hands as the benchwarmers did when the league was first established back in 1946. But anyways, on top of that fact, Jason Tatum still has 3 years left on his contract worth about $35 million a year, which is a bad enough hit under the new CBA, but then the Celtics went and picked up Kristaps Porzingis, who's owed about $36 million this year. So the Celtics then went ahead and screwed themselves even harder by locking him down for a 2-year, $60 million extension before even seeing how these three are going to fit together. Of course, it is understandable why the Celtics needed to sign Jaylen's extension or risk losing him on the market, as it is a lot easier for teams to just pay dudes like Jaylen Brown than it is to go out and find one. But with the new CBA having a lot harsher luxury tax punishments than the previous one, which you can check out us talking about right up here, it is reasonable to question if these recent moves are just going to lock them into mediocrity for the next 5 years. But before we get every beer-bellied dude from Boston screaming in the comments, let's talk about the positive sides to these moves. For example, they did end up trading Marcus Smart, and although Marcus is a good player and a fan favorite in Boston, his time with the Celtics was coming to a natural end, as his defense completely fell off a cliff over this last year. He was also a pretty big thorn in Joe Mazzulla's side, and with Marcus clearly having the locker room support, it was hard for Joe to even really sit him in times when it definitely would have helped, as Marcus was finding the ball in his hands during the clutch quite often last year, and that usually didn't end up to positive results. Also, the Celtics are absolutely loaded at the point guard spot, and honestly, Derek White looked really good playing with Tatum and Brown last year, so him getting more minutes should be a major plus for the organization. Now let's talk about the guy Boston got in return, Kristaps Porzingis. Now, although some fans may express concern about Porzingis' injury history, there are a bunch of reasons they should be hyped about this trade. I mean, Porzingis brings a much-needed post presence to the Celtics, as their post offense last year was pretty trash, as they were ranked 26th in the entire league. Even in the modern perimeter-focused NBA, Porzingis' effectiveness as a scorer from the post is valuable and complements Tatum's game pretty well. He's also a great drop defender, and with Mazzulla being a very defense strategy-favored head coach, I'm sure he'll find different ways to utilize him. Porzingis is also coming off a career year, and the other advantage of adding Porzingis to the roster is the ability to fill the void when Tatum's off the court. Not to mention the fact that Al Horford isn't getting any younger, and I know the video of him staring down Giannis is cool and all. The truth is, the only reason he even made it to that point is because he sat on OKC's bench for the entire year prior, just resting up. But now he's coming off a second year of a deep postseason run, and someone's gonna need to replace him. Time Lord is a little too inconsistent as of right now, so Porzingis should be a welcomed face in that locker room. And like I just said, this team has already made solid postseason runs for consecutive years. So if the addition of Kristaps Porzingis really does work out, we might be talking about some league-shifting conversations. Jason Tatum is still only 25 years old, and Jaylen Brown is only 1 year older at 26. Which would be a pretty scary thought for teams around the league, as this duo wouldn't be going anywhere and would always be in title contention, and will most likely win some of those. And if Tatum continues the level of play that he showed last year, he'll continue to be in the MVP conversations. And if he manages to win a few of those, well, now we're talking all-time greatness. Now, a lot of this is a pretty far stretch, as NBA journeys seldom go as smoothly as that. I mean, just look at Steph and the Warriors, who almost captured the three-peat in 2019 to then go on to have the worst record in the entire league the year following, crawl their way back to 9th in the West, only to lose in the play-ins in the year after that, till they once again found themselves as NBA champs in 2022. So I think it's now a good time to talk about how this may look if the team completely flops.
Unfortunately, in recent years, we've seen a number of NBA teams make big promises through moves like the Porzingis trade, yet ultimately fail to deliver. You can have all the star power in the world, but if the cohesion isn't there, then the house of cards will fall. While the Celtics are undoubtedly better on paper with Porzingis, they had to give up one of the pillars of the team in Marcus Smart. As we said before, Marcus had fallen off a bit by the time of his trade, yet was still the spiritual leader of the team, which is very important to team chemistry. This means that Porzingis will have to work extremely hard, not only on the court, but off the court as well, to develop team chemistry and help forge a new identity among the Celtics. This could be a risk factor for the team. Not that Porzingis is a toxic locker room guy by any means. However, his departures from the Knicks as well as the Mavs seem to have left a bad impression with both teams. From this, we can assume that Porzingis may not be the best locker room guy, even if stuff doesn't get out to the media too much. Usually, it would be whatever if a new star isn't the best leader. Think Kawhi on the Raptors. However, Porzingis is essentially replacing the old team leader in spirit, so if he were to come in with a negative attitude or be antisocial for some random examples, it could really affect the Celtics. Another risk factor is one that sucks, but something that we have to talk about. Porzingis is one of the more injury-prone players in the league, given his towering height of 7'3". The facts are that he will likely miss at least 15 games if we basically look at every season he's played. If all he has to deal with are a few smaller injuries here or there, that's fine. However, if Porzingis happens to get an injury that keeps him out for a few months, that could be disastrous for team spirit and chemistry leading up to the playoffs, which is never something you want. Even if all the team chemistry issues work out magically and Porzingis has a fully healthy season, the Celtics need guards Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon as well as swingman Jaylen Brown to step up and cover the hole in perimeter defense left by the departure of Marcus Smart. Perimeter defense was Smart's biggest skill by far, and Porzingis is definitely more of an inside defender than a perimeter guy, and that's putting it lightly. Who knows if this increased responsibility on the defensive end will lead to reduced offensive effectiveness for the guards, or if they all just take a step up. Now, if all of this worked out so far, the Celtics would be fine and dandy for a few years, and definitely have the potential to win a chip. However, as we mentioned earlier, with the rules of the new CBA punishing teams a lot for going over the cap, it's hard to think that the Celtics won't run into major issues down the road with players wanting higher paydays and looking elsewhere, or even voluntarily shedding key role players due to not wanting to pay such a high price and go further over the cap. This still gives the Celtics a clear one-year window before the more stringent measures of the CBA kick in at the start of the 2024 season, and they might even have 1 year after that if they really feel like splurging. But it will come to an end, fast. The Celtics obviously know this, but maybe after the better part of a decade tooling up, they figure now is their best time to go all in with a roster before the madness of the new CBA truly unfolds. Nobody is denying just how good the Celtics look on paper. Given that Tatum and Brown are still improving, adding Porzingis to the mix could make an unstoppable team. With the new CBA coming up though, this team will likely act as the example for a number of teams that are still hesitant to hop off the fence and choose a side. The upsides are a potential championship, and the downsides are almost a decade of conservatively tooling up being thrown out the window. Either way, we're watching a high-stakes game now for the Celtics, and it should make the games this season just that much more interesting.